Morning glory and evening grace, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Thank you for watching the program today. If you're watching on the Salem News Channel, welcome aboard. If you're listening on any of our great affiliates, you should be trying us over at YouTube. You can sign up at YouTube for the Hugh Hewitt Show and watch guests like this. Rich Lowry, editor of National Review, the Wally Pipp of podcasting. Rich, you're a Yankees fan, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So you know that when Wally Pipp sat down and Lou Gehrig stood up, it was a long time till we heard from Wally. Jack Butler sat in for you last week. I thought he did a fabulous job.
Well, why do you think I came back from vacation, Hugh? I can't leave that seat unoccupied and become the Wally Pipp of podcasting. And Andy actually did his podcast on his own, so I was really rendered really relevant.
I also listened to today, and he was very glad to have you back because he didn't like doing the solo monologue for an hour, and I get that. I want to talk to you first about Mr. Mamdani. Now, Rich, I get confused. Do you live in D.C. or do you live in New York?
I'm in the New York City area.
Okay, so you don't get to vote?
No.
Okay. Here's Mr. Mamdani, a clip that surfaced of him on a podcast today, cut number 1.
My platform is that every single person should have housing. And I think faced with these two options, the system has hundreds of thousands of people unhoused. Right? For what? And if there was any system that could guarantee each person housing, whether you call it the abolition of private property or you call it, just a statewide housing guarantee, it is preferable to what is going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
so. Rich Lowry,
people try and play like.
How do you hear that?
I mean, it's another indication that at bottom he's a communist, maybe a small c communist or a democratic communist. That's not a contradiction in terms, but it makes you wonder, Hugh, where was the Andrew Cuomo Oppo operation, right? We get one of these on X, like literally every other day, the kind of thing that you think would sink someone. Now, it's not going to sink someone necessarily in New York City Democratic politics, but this could have hurt, these things. And Cuomo didn't find them or didn't utilize them. And is now making this run as an independent, where I don't think it's totally hopeless, but I'm skeptical.
Well, I am very critical of that because I think the best option for New York is Eric Adams is mediocre, but mediocre is better than crazy. Curtis Sliwa I've known forever, a good guy, but he can't win. Andrew Cuomo's a bad guy and he can't win. Isn't it really Eric Adams or the communist?
I was talking to a really smart political consultant who knows New York City really well, and he says if you somehow manage to make Mamdani radioactive to Democratic voters, right? That's the name of the game. 70% of the electorate in November is going to be Democrats. If you win 75% of them, he wins, right, mathematically. So you really have to drive up his negatives among Democrats, and you got to do it on practical stuff. Your streets aren't going to be as safe. You might lose your job. This has all been tried and failed. It's going to make the city worse. And then, once people conclude someone's unacceptable, then it kind of doesn't matter, right? Whoever's in second will surge. But as of now, Adams and Cuomo both have much higher negatives than Mandani, and I'm not sure anyone's doing the right thing. Cuomo seems to think if he just gets out there in glad hands, he'll become likable and surge past him. I don't think that's going to happen. Everyone's fire's got to be on this guy and making him unacceptable. And then if he is unacceptable, then it doesn't really matter whether it's a three-person race against him. Someone will surge. But I don't think the first predicate necessarily is going to happen that is radioactive.
The next question I would love to hear you and Andy talk about is how bad could it get in New York? I moved to New York for the first time in 1980, and I stayed for 8 months, and I left, and I've only been back as a visitor since. It was horrific in 1980. Could it become that bad again?
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's still a long way to slide till you get there. I was on the other end of that, Hugh. I came in 92. And Rudy was elected, in 93. And I left to go down in D.C. in 94. But just when I was going, they were rousting people out of the subways. Their announcements don't, give people money. It's not helpful to them. It's bad for the city. It's bad for everyone's safety. The squeegee guys are being run off the street. So you could see it just beginning to change. But when I showed up, people said, don't go on the subway unless it's the middle car where there's a conductor or the front car where there's a conductor, because otherwise it's too dangerous. People still had signs in their cars saying, don't break into my car. The radio's already been stolen, right? That's how bad it was. So I don't think we get there soon, but the trajectory is going to be bad. And And this is another indication that Hugh, sorry to drag on here, of a complacency, right? We got de Blasio because it was so good after Giuliani and Bloomberg, people thought it couldn't go back. And it hasn't gone all the way back, but it's taken steps back, and this will be further steps down if this guy actually makes it.
Now, you have a good police commissioner right now in Ms. Tish, and you've got a pretty decent school chancellor, but I believe Mamdani can replace them both. Has anyone, to your knowledge, asked him if he'll commit to keeping both or either of them?
I think people have urged him on the police commissioner. I'm not sure whether he's committed. Now, he may, he's sounded more reasonable in these various meetings he's having with elected Democrats and business leaders, kind of kinder, gentler communism. But I think these convictions are quite sincere. And outside of his ideology being wrong and destructive, I just think he's a completely callow guy. Even if he agreed with us on everything, Hugh, I would not elect that guy to run New York City,
Oh,
this massive management and political task.
no, and we don't agree on it. Number one, I think he's an anti-Semite. I think Politico produced all the evidence I need to make that opinion clear for me, and I'm very comfortable saying, if you've got this record of 10 things, even though you haven't said the protocols of the Elder of Zion, they're
Right.
somewhere in your head rolling around. Do you think the Jewish community figures out that they've got to unite around one candidate?
I don't know. I just I don't know about New York City Jewish Democrats. I'm on. I don't know whether you know Sid Rosenberg, great host on WABC. I'm on with him every week up here, and he's a Jew and a reasonable Jew and a sound guy. Loves Trump, loves Israel, and he's turning his head out about this every single show. That his fellow Jews just don't get it, or at least if they
Yeah.
get it, they won't actually act on it and pull the lever at the ballot box in a way that makes sense. So I don't have a lot of hope.
Okay, let's go to the bad side. If he actually wins, I want to talk to you quickly about Epstein as well. But if he actually wins, does he become the brand of the Democratic Party? Because I'll work every day to make that happen.
Yeah, I think it'll hurt them. It's already hurting them somewhat, but does that make a difference in a swing district somewhere in Iowa where the Democrat doesn't have to have anything to do with Mamdani, hasn't met him in his life, doesn't have to endorse him, and can distance himself from him? I think it hurts, but it's not going to make a massive difference. I think the Democrats have other problems.
Well, our problem right now on the Republican side is named Epstein, and he's not really a problem. I heard your introduction with Andy today on the McCarthy Report, and like you, I paid very little attention over the last 7 years because he was a criminal and a horrible person,
Yeah.
and he was going to spend the rest of his days in jail. So I thought suicide made sense. I also thought the speculation that someone might have helped him kill himself made sense that you and Andy had today. But does this story possibly last on fumes? There's just nothing there.
hmm I just think it's a rule of life, Hugh, our political life, the last 10 years, every Trump controversy uh, goes away. I think it's a symptom of how the news cycle has changed and the news business has changed, and everything feels old after about 5 days because the coverage has been so obsessive. And then he's doing so much, right, and has a genius for turning the page. So do kind of think it fades, but I think elements of his base aren't going to be satisfied no matter what. And I think they botched this. I'd like to see more documents. I think there are legitimate questions about this, some of which will just never be answered. How he made his money, I don't think we'll ever know. But why weren't some other people prosecuted? I think that's a good question. What was this review? How did they undertake it of these documents? Who actually did it? It'd be great to have an AG who could go out and answer all those questions and kind of maybe put this thing to bed to the extent it can be put to bed. But I'm not sure Pam Bondi is that AG.
Yeah, I worked for two attorneys general. They never get into the weeds on a particular criminal case. I wouldn't expect her to know either. But let me conclude with a completely different subject. The guy in Syria, there's been a massacre of the Alawites. There was an atrocity against the Druze. Are you beginning to get your fear up that we've put another Taliban government into place? Because I am.
Yeah, I mean that fear never went away, right? Or it was always there, even though there was some optimism about him. But it's not. it's not shocking that a couple months after he takes power, Israel's bombing. And what's disgraceful, besides just the atrocities, is just the fact that it just shows once again, Hugh, a Middle Eastern government can engage in all sorts of massacres and inhumane practices, and no one cares. No one cares unless it's allegedly Israel doing it. Then it's front page news, and podcasters are obsessed over it. It's disgraceful.
Great point on which to end. Rich Lowry, good to have you back from vacation. Watch out for Wally Pipp, a.k.a. Jack Butler, and I will talk to you again soon. Don't go anywhere except to The Editors, the podcast that Rich hosts every week, and the McCarthy Report as well. I'll be right back, America. Stay tuned.